like to welcome all of you. If you give me a few moments, I'm going to set up the screen. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. We have other people planning to join us who've registered from different parts of the world and different time zones. So if they come in, I'll be bringing them on board so they can see us, and hopefully we can all get to know a little bit about each other. Today's presentation is about the phenomenon of cyberbullying. And cyberbullying is something which combines two issues, probably close to all of us. And one is the question of education itself and the right of children to be educated free from pressure or aggression or threat or intimidation. It's also about technology. We've had bullying since the beginning of time and many things that we need to do about it. But in this case, we have a mixture of new forms of technology causing significant and documented damage to young people in schools. And this project arose out of the desire for some schools to make a difference, and it was funded by a European program with Erasmus+. And the program, the project is called APPS, and Imelda and I will be talking to you about it. And this has been a journey with schools in Italy and Romania and Spain and in Poland, as well as ourselves in Ireland. ULS is the Irish partner, to do some research on cyberbullying, to look at the extent and to suggest ways to mediate it. So what we're going to do is, after my words of introduction, and I'd like to welcome you all here, my colleague Imelda Graham will be taking us through the project itself. But first, we'd like to introduce you some of the slides. I'll be getting that up there. And we also have a video, greetings from our colleague. Let me just get this here now. No, this is, I wanted to get this on full screen. If you give me one moment. Okay. Let's see if we can get this. I thought full screen would be better, but if can everybody see this okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so first what we'd like to do, you will see that the formal title of the project is Addressing Teaching to Prevent Cyberbullying Phenomenon in Schools, which is shortened, thank heavens, to APPS. And we will be looking through this in context and background of this project, the research that went into it, the development of the project, and finally the outcome, full schools program, and what will happen in the future. So to kick us off on this, I'd like to virtually introduce project manager Roberta, and I'll be doing this through her pre-recorded message.
Hello Alan, hello Imelda, and hello to all the participants in this meeting about cyberbullying prevention. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Maria Roberta Cappelletti, and I'm a teacher at Mengaroni Art School in Pesaro, in Italy. In short, the project was born inside a network of Italian schools more than 3 years ago. All the schools were located in the same area, and they belonged to different school grades, from primary to upper secondary. And all these schools were working on this the issue of cyberbullying prevention. Especially cyberbullying prevention at school. And so then we decided that we wanted to make these local projects bigger and turn it into a European project. So we applied for the Erasmus Plus in the action called Strategic Partnership for Innovation. And we asked support from Cometa, that is a local training agency which is expert in European projects. And then we started to look for European partners interested in our project, interested in this idea. That is, the idea was to imagine a curriculum on cyberbullying in a vertical perspective that is covering all school grades, in order to create a pathway or more pathways that children and teenagers, students could follow all through their school life in a gradual way, and so to develop their digital and citizenship competencies, especially about cyberbullying. And made a research on the web, we found out that actually there were not many examples of this approach, this vertical approach to the cyberbullying issue. But this was not the only innovative aspect that we wanted to put in the project. There is a lot. The other thing was that we wanted to focus on prevention rather than on stopping the cyberbullying phenomenon. There is a lot of literature about what to do at school when you know about a cyberbullying episode. That is mainly stop, lock and tell, or punish the bully, and that sort of things. But our point was more on how to make school a favorable environment to prevent the phenomenon from taking place. So the team that gathered around this idea of cyberbullying prevention at school, at the end, it included 4 Italian schools, a Spanish school, secondary school, a Romanian school from primary to secondary, a Polish secondary school, Cometa Training Agency, and ULS, Universal Learning Systems, from Dublin, which contributed to this project in different phases, but especially in the first part of the project, that was the part on research and needs analysis, and especially in teachers training. So Imelda and Alan, they were involved, especially for both online and online training, and also there was this week in Dublin where all the staff of the project took part, and there was this training in presence. So during the research phase, we investigated especially the relationship dynamics in the light of neurosciences, stressing the importance of promoting empathy and promoting the awareness of the risks of the smartphone among children and teenagers. And we also reflected on the role of bystanders when they become active upstanders, but without that dangerous attitude of blaming the bully, rather trying to restore empathy when it was missing. So the schools worked around these three main points: promoting empathy, promoting the awareness of the smartphone, the use of the smartphone, and the importance of the role of bystanders. And the schools designed these three vertical learning modules to be used in the classrooms, including a series of teaching units and lesson plans from primary to upper secondary school. And another important thing to say is that the modules were created by involving the students of every partner country in a direct way, especially in artistic and creative activities, which were shared in the course of the 3 student exchanges in 3 partner countries. Actually, there should have been 4 student exchanges, but unfortunately, the last one that was planned to take place in Italy was cancelled due to the coronavirus emergency. And that was a pity, because that was the last opportunity for students to meet, to exchange their works, to reflect and compare and work together on the cyberbullying issue. Anyway, the schools, I was saying that the schools created these modules, and then the modules were pilot tested by other schools, and the results were quite satisfactory, though of course the modules needed to be further implemented. And the final step of the project is going on at the moment. That is the publishing of a teacher's handbook with all the units produced so far that can be used as they are, or adapted to the different school contexts. I think Imelda will speak about this more in detail. So this is, I think, the core of our project. And so Alan and Imelda will give more details if needed. The last thing I want to say is that at the moment, several schools, universities, and local authorities in the different countries have shown interest in apps project. They have also signed agreements to promote the project findings inside and outside their institutions. So this is really a very good thing, and I really trust the project will have a life after its end, and I hope that a lot of teachers and children will benefit from it. This is really important, as everybody knows that this phenomenon is increasing, as testified by recent articles about the children's misuse of technologies during the recent pandemic lockdown. So that's all, I think. I hope it didn't take too long. I apologize if I've gone too far. So again, I wish all the participants a very interesting and profitable meeting. And Alan and Imelda, I send you my warmest congratulations for the meeting and all my gratefulness for what you've done for our project. Goodbye.
Okay. Now we shall go back.
Attackability, and I'm a teacher at Nengaroni.
Now, sorry about the delay in getting back on here. Our gratitude for Roberta for taking time out to be able to talk to us in terms of the background. As I put up the slides, you will see that the background to this and the things we were talking about were about the rise of cyberbullying, associated issues with that, recapping what you said, the increase in early school leaving, the research and survey that was undertaken by the project and its development. And we've already mentioned the partners from the different countries. There were 4 directly involved. In Ireland, we were involved, but largely from the research, the overview, and dissemination sides, but obviously we don't run a school. And we have particular examples from the research. And Imelda, maybe you'd like to take us through some of these, and I will keep scrolling through the slides to make sure we can actually.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Alan. Hope everybody can hear me. I think one person was having a problem with sound. I hope you got it sorted. Kathy, did you get it sorted? Yeah? Okay. Alan, I think you can switch to active speaker, and that'll mean I'll be on screen. Is that okay?
Okay.
Somewhere on the, should be near the camera pictures. Anyway, I keep talking. So we can see that we have our partners in the project, and we had 6 schools from the Rimini area and Pesaro area of Italy. And then we had a school from Romania, another school from Poland, and a lovely school from art school from Spain called the Pedro Almodovar School. And it was very interesting and exciting to get everybody together and to know that we were all coming from the same origins. Now, Alan mentioned that one of the examples of the research that came through, what we did and what they did, we did surveys with all the children in all of those 10 schools. And we found that there was a few issues that came up, and then there was one of the dominant issues was that the most common age for cyberbullying was around the age of 12 to 14, which was really interesting. And I think it's part of that age when children are moving into 2nd level school and are at that cognitive stage of development where they're beginning to, develop their own self-identity. But some of the research examples that we have was some of the things that were highlighted by the young people and the students were familiar with some of them, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. Alone together was an interesting new phenomenon to me anyway, and there's certainly when you're sitting with the family and everybody's sitting with their own smart device and you're all together in the same room but you're alone together. And then you have the phenomenon of smartphone addiction and the end of empathy and digital narcissism and the idea of emotional mirroring, and a lot of theorists around the idea of the neuroscience of the children's reaction to wanting to be with their peers, to wanting to mirror what their peers are doing. So all of these issues were brought out throughout all the exercises that were developed, so that the children learn about all of these things according to their level of ability. So yeah, we can move up a little bit, Alan, okay? So as Roberta said, they use the model of vertical learning, which ideally works with children of different age groups together. So they did that on the exchanges. And on the exchanges, you had different age groups coming together to develop the different initiatives and different programs and exercises. But you also then, we graded it, the project graded it then and adapted it for each age group. So they met virtually through the project. They met first in Spain, and then they got to know each other, and then they were enabled through technology like this to keep in touch with each other and develop activities and exercises. And I'm going to show you one of the first projects that we developed was the app's logo, which we'll see on the next slide in a moment. But the students worked really closely together, and they got to know each other over the 2.5 years of the project, and they built relationships. And it was a pity about the last exchange being cancelled. Obviously we were all in Italy and we were waiting for the children to arrive on the Sunday, but they had to cancel because they were going to do a lovely flash mob, and I had a personal ambition to be in a flash mob, but it couldn't be helped. But they still have the connections with each other. And the lovely thing is that there was a cultural understanding developed. And it was interesting to see that on our survey results, that the issues for all the children were very similar in each country. And as I said, the age group was a common age group around the age of 12. But the other things that were common was that the parents didn't always realize what the children were doing. And the parents were thinking that they were giving clear ideas to students and to their children, but not necessarily the message getting across. And the same with teachers. The teachers think that they're giving clear messages, but the children often have a different understanding. So it's getting that commonality between them all. And the project really helps and works on that. Then the other exciting thing about this project, I think, was that from the very, very start, we used creative technologies. We used art, the medium of art, and throughout these slides, I've put in some of the children's work and the students' work. And we've built on that, but also we looked out for as many advanced media tools that we could. We've developed some of the equipment that they're using, some of the tools that they're using from places like MIT and other tools. So I've given examples of those. And in the handbook, when eventually it's finished with the designers, I'll send it out to everybody who's interested. And the handbook will then have all of the different resources, which are really advanced resources that the children were using. So it was great to see them using it properly. Okay, will we move up a little bit, Alan, please? So that's the cover of the handbook that's going to be coming out shortly. And we'll be, so I'm just moving my own notes here, sorry. Yeah. So we use different techniques. So the handbook develops a lot of methodologies. It uses lectures, cooperative learning, peer-to-peer learning, digital storytelling, teamwork, role play, classroom debates. Some are very familiar to us, and some others, such as digital storytelling, would be less familiar. The modules that were developed that, as Roberta said, we decided at the early stages of the project that there was so much on literature already on cyberbullying. And as she said, it often focuses on handling a situation after it has arisen. But we really wanted to develop preventative methods, because the distress of a child who suffers the bullying, and in the handbook, we have one of the videos that we used, Little Boy in Limerick. And I can share that link with you afterwards if anybody wants to see it. And it's used in the handbook in some of the exercises. And he did an amazing short video on how actions hurt, the cyberbullying actions hurt. And that sort of thing, when it gets to that stage, the children are actually experiencing trauma. So we want to prevent trauma. You want the schools to actually address in advance and to know that they are in a safe environment, that they can deal with these issues in a mature way. And as you see, we've developed the role of empathy and helping people to understand and to empathize, and a lot of exercises developed for these things. When I go through some of the different levels in a few minutes, but you can see that the role of empathy is each of these modules is repeated for each age group, so that they build upon one another. So you get a child of 10 who starts doing these exercises in the classroom with the teachers, and that's built upon. The following year and 2 years after, when they move into secondary and lower secondary, they'll build upon developing their empathic skills, and they will understand more and more about it as they go on. And similarly, understanding media for the primary age groups is at a more basic level. And then you move on. And then one of the important aspects in the modules that we felt was really crucial was the role of bystanders. Now, we all have heard of cyberbullying. We've heard of various situations. And the role of the bystanders is really important. The role of the bystanders to address and challenge the bully. So that's something that's addressed, and we'll talk about it more. So the common themes and exercises adjusted to each age group. And then teacher supports. In the handbook, we've put in as many teacher supports as possible. We've got lesson plans, we have hints for timetabling, we've got hints for things to watch out for in each particular unit and in each particular module. And we've also got lists of the safety concerns for each country. So each country will have safety links and will have places that they can go to address on a legal basis as well, if necessary. So that, and then the program was fully tested and evaluated in all of the schools, and there was evaluation before, beginning, middle and after. So the full details of all that will be in the final report, but going from our baseline survey and then taking that, and they developed that into surveys for the exchanges and surveys for the actual testing and monitoring. So I'm just going to scroll up there to the idea of the digital citizen competencies. And I think that this is a really important aspect of the whole project. These are the outcomes that we want. We want these competencies to be instilled within the children and become part of their values and attitudes, and that they will play a full and active part in discussions and teamwork with peers, even from different age groups. And I know in Ireland there is a trend, especially with the younger early years work, that it is encouraged that children from different age groups will work together, and that is a little bit of a growing development. They will show collaboration, assertiveness and responsibility in online interaction. And I think that's one of the other strengths of this project, in that the children will, and the students are understanding how to work with each other, and to have respect, and to be able to be assertive and responsible and identify their own areas of responsibility, and engage in pro-social behaviour when managing situations. And then there's a few particular things. We have the leadership, showing leadership, and that's really encouraged, and how leadership, using leadership and positive uses of technology, and looking at positive peer pressure to discourage cyberbullying, so that it forms part of the ethos of the school, that cyberbullying is just not tolerated in that environment. And in a virtual perspective, the objectives are common to all the school levels, but they're adjusted obviously depending on the grade that you're at. And then we go on to the next slide there. So this is an example. This is module 1. And module 1 is the role of empathy. And the role of empathy, as you can see, I've listed all the main exercises there. And it's at the primary school units. You can see that they have a couple of different exercises which are fully equipped with lesson plans and timetabling, etc. And you can see that in the lower secondary school unit there, that the listen and understand with your head and your heart exercise is repeated, but it's built up a little bit for the older age group. And then I was talking earlier about the mirror neurons and the mirroring, the idea of emotional mirroring. So it's a good exercise around that. And then moving into the upper secondary school unit, they have the idea of words that hurt, words that heal. So it's reaching into that more adult type of when the young people are becoming more grown up and more able to cope with different issues around this. And the picture up at the top there that the students developed, if you can see it properly, they developed all their empathic emoji. Developed a whole program around empathic emoticons and visualizing emotions. And in the full handbook, some of the exercises they have done are absolutely amazing. Now on the next slide, we have just an example of the idea of cartoon. So this was created by some of the younger children in the primary age group, and it's so professional and sophisticated. So they worked on this, and then they used the Scratch program from MIT to actually put it into a cartoon form. And you know, we all know the ability of the young people to teach us how to use technology. This was affording them great opportunities to do this. So they're really advanced in these technological skills, all the children and the young people that have participated in this program. So we'll move on to the next module. And the next module is the idea of understanding media. And this really had to be, the lesson plans, what they start to do is to use the Schramm model of communication, and there are earlier similar models of encoding and decoding communication. And they really learn how to analyze communication. Even at a very young age, they can do that. And they're looking to see how they can stop having those gut reactions to messages that come through on their phone and start to think. And it opened up a broader perspective. So there's a lot of hours devoted to this module in terms of understanding media, in terms of analysing issues like fake news, for example, and the idea of being leaders, providing leadership and connecting and be smart, not dangerous. All of those exercises are designed to unpick social media, unpick advertising messages, marketing messages, and learn to be a discerning person, a discerning consumer. And the exercises there you can see, is it a social media or social phobia, and appearances are deceptive, and that's about looking behind the messages that you're getting. So the next slide is about becoming critical consumers. And it's the purpose of lesson 1, it's just an example. Each lesson in all of the 3 modules has got its objectives and aims, and they're very, very clear. And the idea of becoming a critical consumer is just one example of these, and it is to teach students the contemporary challenges associated with the consumption of media content and discussions on social media. This involves understanding the concepts of fake news, echo chambers, and filter bubbles. I think we're all learning about these every day. We're hearing from the States the various fake news that come through from people who don't know the difference between what they've said and what they should be saying and the reality. And if anybody saw the interview between Chris Wallace and Trump the other day, where he is challenged and he doesn't believe his own, he nearly calls on his own lies. It's ridiculous. So learning to filter all of that and learning to analyze that, so the students begin to understand why fake news exists. Sorry, somebody want to ask a question? No? No. Okay, so why it exists, how to recognize it, and how to take positive steps to respond to it. And this will build their awareness of existing echo chambers and filter bubbles, and how that's impacting on their online experiences. So, for example, becoming more discerning about sharing items of knowledge. So we're probably all familiar with the fact that you just think something that really hits you emotionally and you hit share to all your friends, and then you realize it was false and it's doing untold damage. So all of those things, the children become much more media savvy, and you can see there how they analyze that there are positive effects to social media. I mean, there's really, really good positive effects there, some of the children did in their graphics, but they also recognize that there are negative effects. So each and every one of those has been analysed throughout their exercises and through their lessons. And they spent a long time working on all of these so that they have a very clear understanding of each and every single one of those points that they've made, the negative and the positive. So if we move on to lesson 3, and lesson 3 is about engaging bystanders. And can you just move back down a bit, Alan, please? Just down a little bit, yeah. So the engaging bystanders is about, again, it's got the primary school units, and it focuses on the different roles performed by people observing and witnessing the cyberbullying episodes. They can remain silent. They can stand by and watch the bully, and that's the real bystander. But then what do? They become an accomplice of the bully, even in a silent, passive way. Or they can denounce it and stand by the bullied person. And in that way, they move into a role of what's called an upstander. So they show proactive behaviours. This is where their leadership skills will be developed. This is where they will begin to address these items, and when they call them out when they happen, whether it's online or whether it's in person. And this makes a huge difference. It is therefore essential that the students gain an understanding of the importance of taking positive action and contribute towards the well-being of the victim and the solution of online conflicts. And there's different forms of bullying, such as harassment, cyber stalking, denigration, impersonation, trickery, outing, sexting, exclusion, cyber bashing. And one of the good things about all the exercises, some of them particularly, focus on the role of minorities, and they focus on how people with minority backgrounds and with disabilities from different ethnic backgrounds can be part of a minority that is more likely to be bullied. And we might say a bit more about that at the end, Alan, actually. And the idea that all the activities in the teacher unit should be undertaken in groups, and this improves empathic skills. So running throughout all of the modules and all of the lesson plans is this idea of building empathy, building cooperation, building collaboration, building a sharing between the different age groups, and knowing then that they can talk to their peers at the higher levels in the school, and they'll all have an understanding of the language that they're developing together, the language of things like upstanding. So all the activities they'll understand the characteristics of what a bully is and maybe perhaps why they bully, and then focusing on how they impact these dynamics. And they stimulate a change in the students' behaviours from being passive spectators into active subjects, moving from bystanding to upstanding. Can we just move down to the next slide, please, Alan? We're obviously in 2 different countries, so that's why I have to keep explaining. So this idea that children develop these ideas and this upstander pledge, which is a very, you know, it's fantastic to see this. Just call it out. I am an upstander. I have the power to influence my peers. I say something or do something when you need help. I am there for you. I help you get the help, will help you get the help you need. You are not alone. I have your back. And I think that's a fantastic pledge to have from the youngest age group up to the older ones. And you know, that they then begin to understand that that is the norm, that bullying is not tolerated. And I think throughout the exercises, there is built in an understanding of perhaps the motivation behind bullying, and perhaps people who have been bullied in other situations themselves might then turn to bullying. But the bully needs help too. And I know in Ireland, where we have our child protection laws, bullying is one of the issues that is now mentioned as an area for child protection. And it is very much a case that it is recognised that the bully needs as much help and support as the person being bullied when they're both underage. And I like the idea of the bystander intervention is recognised as a superpower, that it gives the child and the student words. It gives them the idea, this is what I say to you. What you said just now is not okay, and you can't treat people like that. And I think these ideas have all come from the work of the students. And just like I have particular fondness for the next one, and I probably indulge myself by putting it in. I think this is some of the work of the older students. They developed this calendar, and I just think it's so powerful. That's the picture of March, and it's about keeping people's keeping away and having your faces behind the screen. It's just such a powerful image. And the school in Spain actually developed, the exercises are in the book, they developed an amazing board game, and they've put together all the parts. So these are all tangible, real exercises and lessons and examples that schools can be using. And I think after schools as well, because I think, you know, these are interesting exercises that some of the after school leaders in Ireland particularly, and I'm sure in some of the other countries, could be using some of these and building them in throughout their program for the year, that they can be addressing issues like this. Because if it's not being done in the local school like this, if they're doing it in the after school, the mentality and the attitudes and the skills will carry through. And it's really good. So Alan, I've talked enough, and I'm going to hand back to you. And you want to talk about the future impact of apps?
I shall indeed. Thanks very much, Imelda. And we will have some time after this for any of you who would like to ask questions or make comments on what we've been through. This project, like all EU projects, is now coming to an end. And as it comes to an end, one of the critical aspects from the point of view of EU programs in general and Erasmus Plus in particular is what happens now. What is expected from the partnership or from the team in terms of the sustainability of the project's findings. There's been a lot of research, there's been a lot of action. You can see the creativity of the young people going on these journeys. There's been a lot of exposure to good training programs. I know during our research phase, we found particularly good videos and programs coming from Canada and the RCMP on what to do. So this involves policing, legislation, parents, families. But we're left with a couple of key points that we'll share with you as we come to the end. We really talk about the impact, first of all, being about better guidance of young people, thanks to the support of stakeholders who are engaged in understanding their needs and problems. One of the common themes with cyberbullying, indeed all forms of bullying, is that others don't take it seriously. And there's a direct and demonstrable link between this phenomenon and between self-harm, between crushed expectations and self-confidence, and even suicide. This is a real and current threat to young people. So we need to guide people, we need to understand, and all stakeholders involved need this. Schools themselves need to network and cooperate. And we found decided benefits from them being able to do this internationally, looking at from the point of view of social inclusion. And all of us know how important this is. It's in Europe and also in human rights protection. One of our schools was in Poland, and Poland has been going through particular challenges in recent years with its understanding around migration, rights of minorities, and also even the rule of objective law itself. So schools connecting with each other can share experiences and ideas. We know that we need to change our own learning and teaching methods regarding social inclusion and human rights. We know that we need to respect diversity, that to be different is not really an excuse to be victimized. It's a way for all of us to learn. So teachers, school administrators, families can and should be involved in this process. Creating a network between the public and private organizations working in these fields therefore also becomes important. Can we take what we have done and learned from a school environment and bring it out to other contexts, community, employment, whatever it might be? And finally, this is about really aligning what is happening in schools, in training systems, and society as a whole. As you heard from Imelda, one of the things that impacted on us quite dramatically in the final, literally months of the project was the coronavirus pandemic. And this took us where the schools themselves had to close down and are still closed down. And having forced children to now go through a virtual schooling system for the last few months emphasizes the importance that cyberbullying is not some small little thing to be put in a corner, but a key element in how bullying and social relations are impacted. So as we come to the end of the project, we want to tell other people, we want to share experiences, we want to learn from others. We have the scope and we have the resources to build on this, to work with our colleagues. It has been a wonderful journey of learning. Each of the schools was particularly, I'm sure Imelda would agree with me, particularly creative in what they did in terms of how they understood the issues, how they responded either through graphics, through art, design, porcelain, everything. It's been a real journey of knowledge and adventure and attitudes. And we hope that you can share some of that with us. And we hope that maybe in our discussion now for as long as you want, we can bring some of these issues out and maybe answer any questions you might have. So thank you very much on that. And with that, and thank you so much for staying with me during this technologically challenging experience. Feel free to answer questions and I'll make sure I don't cause any immediate problems by pushing the wrong button.
You can stop sharing. That'll stop sharing the
First thing
slide.
I'm doing is that.
Yay! Okay, thank you. Hide.
When will it be ready or back from the publishers, or when can we read it?
We have a draft version. It's with the designers at the moment, and the project officially ends at the end of August. So we certainly have it within the next few weeks, and we can be in touch. I think I have all your emails in the registration, and we'll hopefully we'll decide to we can do talks or share it or bring it further with anybody who's interested, and do train the teachers as well, which I think would be really useful. Mm-hmm. So that will be ready in the next few weeks, certainly. And it's being translated. We'll have a hard copy in English, and the digital versions are being translated into Italian, Polish, Romanian, and Spanish. So we'll have 4 different language versions as well, but they'll be available digitally. Okay. I suppose I'd just like to comment. I really like the emphasis that was developed on prevention. You know, as we were saying, I should have put in that little clip from the little guy in Limerick, but
that's really good.
Have you seen? You've probably seen it, yeah. It's an amazing one, and you know, we used that in our training when we were doing this a couple of years ago, and they've included it in the book, which is great. And I wrote to him and thanked him actually, because I just said how it was now being used throughout Europe. And you know, it really brought home the reality of the pain that's caused to children by bullying. Anybody who's ever experienced any degree of bullying in any form, it's just the deep pain. And as I always said when I was doing training with Bernardo's, that, you know, we're talking about child protection, talking about bullying, and I used to work Bernardo's, and I had a hat on there where I used to have to speak to on the media when there were suicides, etc. A lot about bullying, and one of the things is that tell parents bullying that the unique feature of cyberbullying is the way it goes with the child to their bed. It goes into their bedroom. So in the middle of the night, if they're not sleeping, they look at their phone and the bullying is there in what should be their safe and secure place. So I really like the emphasis of this project on cyberbullying. And I remember there was somebody who used to work in Bernards, and her daughter was being bullied in her secondary school, new secondary school. And she asked me for help. And we developed a thing where she'd go to the teacher and say this. And they really were blaming the child. They were moving the child from class to class. And I don't think that's uncommon. This is only about 7 or 8 years ago. I don't think that's uncommon. So I think that prevention and getting an ethos into the schools, that this is not something that we need to have. We can actually do something about it. And it can become part of the charter of the schools. One of the things we did in our early survey, we asked which schools of all the children surveyed and all the teachers, which schools had got a vision of procedures and policies for dealing with bullying. A lot of them didn't, or they were very minimal, absolutely minimal. So I think, and when they deal with it, it's like Roberta said, it's like, oh, we'll deal with the bully, or we'll put the bully out of the class, or we'll move the child, you know, and it's not good. I had a family member who had serious bullying and had to leave the school because the school wouldn't deal with the bullies, just wouldn't deal with it. So it's a really serious issue, and I'm delighted with having a preventative approach. It feels more powerful to actually be taking steps to prevent it. It feels like we're all being empowered, and the schools can be empowered and the teachers can be empowered. I've obviously become very passionate about this, you know, because I think it's such an endemic thing around now. So it's really good to see preventative methods, and I'm really behind this program. I think it's and I had to proofread the handbook about 5 times, so I got to know every one of the exercises very well, and it's just, you know, they're just excellent, really excellent.
Maybe if I could make a point on that as well, Imelda, we've learned an awful lot from working with these schools, both about national traditions and about personalities. There's so many things are the same. One of the great impacts of bullying, cyberbullying, is the shame in the person who's being bullied. They've done nothing wrong, but they feel they have. And as Imelda said, this goes into bed with them, and it can produce real trauma. And there are very few examples in the world where this is taken really seriously as something to be addressed at a number of levels. One we did find was Canada, which was quite enlightened, quite proactive. But the interesting thing about our matrix of schools in this project was that many of them were arts schools or had a particular arts departments were involved. So rather than children sitting through art, where am I going to go in life with a qualification in art? They began to use it as a means of self-expression and shared learning. One of our sessions that Imelda came up with was actually in the Municipal Gallery in Dublin, which was great for the teachers because we asked them to explore these wonderful rooms and find images that resonated with them. Also in our Spanish school in Ciudad Real, it is the hometown of Pedro Almodóvar. You may have heard of him, a very famous Spanish film director, probably the most famous. And a man who has been, we said to our colleagues, why don't you ever ask him back? The school is named after him, by the way. And he wouldn't go back because growing up in this small town, he had been bullied consistently. Almodóvar, in case you don't know, is gay and had experienced huge homophobic bullying as a child. So he didn't want to go back. But this allowed the pupils to explore something in their own town, their own experience, their own families. So we hope from this, a dialogue will emerge and a sharing of experiences and ideas and how this resonates in different places. We know we have cyberbullying in Ireland. We know the different kinds of issues, but what we can do, and we hope that the materials from this would be of interest to you in showing what this group over the last 2.5 years has tried to do.
Yeah, and just to say, I've had a lot of interest from some of the teachers' unions and the Parents' Council here. Now, obviously, they're on official holiday now, not lockdown holiday, so that you know, that hopefully we will be sharing this more throughout our Irish teaching unions and getting it onto the curriculum, perhaps with the INTO and with ASTI are interested. So that's something that we hope will develop. And as I said earlier, I do think there's a good role for after schools to play in this. I think that they could have a very strong, they're a little bit freer in a sense in an after school to explore. And there's so much richness, like Alan was saying, the children developed all these, worked on all using these skills, but put them into practical use so they can actually see that it's not just an entertaining exercise in the afternoon to be creating a cartoon. They can actually have a purpose with it, which will benefit them and benefit their peers. So I think there's so much richness in this project, I think, that could be shared and that will benefit young people and students.
One small point, had some of our colleagues in the United States wanted to join us. I was surprised, but I mean, we are talking between a 6 and 9 hour difference. So for many of them, it's very early in the morning. But one colleague wrote to me just before we went on, said she wouldn't be able to join, but she found the subject curious because in the American tradition, bullying is seen as a normal phase that children have to go through to toughen up to face the world. And I was quite appalled because with all our problems in Europe, the starting point is that this is absolutely unacceptable. It is a violation of rights. It is against, particularly when it's associated with other things. But even in people who are open-minded and tolerant and great in the United States, there's still this residual thing, well, you know, just tough it up. That's what happens. And this is how you grow. And I thought if an attitude like that is more widespread, I think we can see where the problems currently in the United States are stemming from. It's very, very good.
I think you could always, you could also have a parallel with domestic abuse, because domestic abuse, you know, and we've had a rise in that since lockdown, whereas the abuser is locked in with, so the person is experiencing the abuse 24/7 effectively, and the emotional violence and even if it's not physical violence. And if you bring that parallel across to what your colleague said, Alan, well then domestic abuse is something you just have to get used to. So maybe, you know, that's an argument that could be used against it.
It's a learning
It's pretty appalling to think that that's, you know.
Okay, it's been an hour, and thank you very much for your time and everything. But before we conclude, any of the rest of you would like to make a comment or ask a question or a general observation?
I think just something that resonated with me, that you said, Amanda, I deliver the child protection training, and I always find when it gets to the point of the cyberbullying slides, especially school age, you know, people do say, well, is it our role to intervene because we're school? They almost feel like they're in the middle, that they're not school, they're not parents. So I think it would be brilliant to be able to be giving them a tool to say, actually, you're kind of in a perfect spot because you're the middle of both, you know. So I think that, as you said, that really resonated with me, to say they're actually in a better position. They're, you know, it's much easier for them to maybe tackle issues like this and use programs.
Because they're in a neutral position. They would be perfect for that, and they would be sharing. And also, this is not about dealing with actual situations, because we have recommendations throughout the whole handbook that they go and get proper advice if that's needed. But this is about prevention, so it's absolutely perfect for them. They can actually bring that tool to their after-school program, and it's a safe place to do it. Yeah, thank you, Deirdre.
Anybody else?
Okay, we can send those slides on to you, definitely. I can do that today, and then I can let you know at a later stage when the handbook comes out. I'll circulate it to you as well, okay? So it'll be, so I'll send slides.
There also is a website.
Yes, and there's actually videos on the website. One of the things we did on the project was we interviewed people who, like teachers or counsellors, and we have a series of videos from each of the partner countries that talk about how the project will affect and impact their work. So that will be interesting. Well, I'll send you the link. So link to website, yeah. and then later on the handbook. Okay, listen, I look forward to hearing more from some of you about it if you're interested, and seeing if we can do any further work on it and hopefully spread the word. And you can just take it and work with it yourselves as well, because I think most of it's very self-explanatory. Okay, Alan, you're up to.
Okay, well, I think we've had an intense hour. Thank you very much for staying with us. And I hope it's been of use and of interest. Please do keep in contact. You will have that. We also have this session recorded. So if you have a burning desire in the middle of the night to hear it all over again, please contact us. Best wishes to all of you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's keep in touch. We work on a number of projects at European and indeed international level, not all on cyberbullying, but in the broad area, the intersection between technology and human rights and human development. And hopefully we'll see some of you at least on the road. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much.
Take good care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Thank you,
I'm going to
Susie.
end the meeting for all, will I?
Yeah.
Susie, are you
Okay.
going?
Thank you so much. It was really special for me.
Hello,
and
Darren.
Say hi, Darren. I will be in touch for
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
where we can spread the word, because it's
Yeah.
extremely important, I think.
Okay, Susie, thank you. And thank you, Terry, as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, right? See you
Nice
soon.
to meet you virtually.
Yeah,
Okay.
virtually. See you later.
Take care, guys. I'll shut
I'll be
this.
going down to Cork in September to see the whales, so I might come down and visit.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Later
you.
on, all right?
That's great.
That's a lockdown, it's not reinstated. Okay, Susie, thanks very much. Bye-bye, Darren. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Do you want to leave, Susie? And then because I just want to wrap up with Alan and just check what jobs I have to do.
Waiting if somebody will throw me out.
You're an angel. Thanks very much. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Oh, okay. How do you think that went?
It was good. My big panic is when I went over to the slides, and I had practiced this 3 times. It picked up the wrong file. I wasn't. I did the screen share. I said let's share it, and I went into the other one, the original save version. Of course,
Yeah.
my panic then was I going to have the link with Roberta? I did, and
Yeah,
that was great. That was seamless.
But it went well. It went well otherwise.
It was
I mean,
good.
it would have been nice to have full slides, but I mean, that's, it was fine.
But we got by it. But I mean, that's the one drawback. And we had one point somebody left. I can't remember who.
Kathy, I think it was a friend of mine. She couldn't get her sound working, but I think that was her end.
Yeah.
Because we checked all the sound.
People.
Yeah, I mean, this is a handy tool during a meeting. You can actually send messages. So she was messaging saying, "I can't hear any of you."
I've used that.
I wrote back to her and said, "We checked the sound. We asked everybody could they hear," and she came in a bit late, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that was her system, and she didn't know where the mute button was. And I was texting her, and I was saying, "Oh God!"
What a great technology! It works.
Isn't it fantastic?
And we did it.
Isn't it fantastic that you and I can run a session? 2 different countries. I can't get over it.
I'm sitting here.
Would have been thrilled. My father loved technology, and he would have been thrilled with this. He would have loved it.
I think it went really well. And now the only thing I'm also thinking about, as the guy I was pushing all these buttons, when I can see all the buttons, they can see all the buttons if I'm sharing the screen. So I was trying to see if I had a separate console where I can see what's going on. That might be.
Yeah, there's some way that you can switch to active speaker like this, and it'll just have you speaking, and then have the little box. So I don't know. You want to play around with it now.
You're right, and I wasn't sure whether it was gallery. There's gallery view with 2 of us.
Yeah, that's gallery view, and then active speaker is just you'd be on the screen.
Okay, I was really grasping with that. I was going to.
Yeah, and are you familiar with the chat option? Do you see where it says more and it has 3 little dots?
Yeah.
Well, you can do chat. You can actually chat with somebody in the meeting. And you can chat to everybody, or you can chat with one person.
I've got the chat open now. What are you seeing on your screen right now?
I'm just saying
Oh, there it is there, yeah.
on the chat. I have the gallery view on. I can see the two of us.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I've sent you a message and it's popping
That's
up
great.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, that's really good.
it's
Yeah,
very
good.
handy.
And I think people themselves are becoming familiar with it, so it's great. But I think
Well, I have to
now,
say, you know what's been a great learning for me?
stop the
My
recording.
Greek